Okay, I did a little bit of different setup with my camera, so hopefully you guys will be able to see what I'm doing here with the washes on her face. I have decided that I'm going to just do the washes for now to see how that comes out. I don't really want to give her that lifelike speckle look that I do. I'm going to see what happens with just washes. And I've decided, I always use red and yellow. I use model air paints only because they're already thin and I thin them down a whole lot more. You can use plain yellow and red from any brand, really. You just want very little paint and a whole lot of other. When I say other, I mean your thinning solution. I'm going to go with plain red, plain yellow, and then I'm going to do a wash of blue. I want to try to give her that pale bloodsucker look. How I thin my paint: distilled water and flow improver. Flow improver is just because you don't get that beading like you do when you just thin with water. 1 drop. Because I'm doing, like I said, a wash. You don't want to paint her face. I don't want to end up with a clown. There have been many times, though, that I have painted and had to strip it. That was 2 drops of flow improver, and I may add more. Just depends on what. 2 drops of water. The blue, I thin a whole lot more because blue can get crazy real quick. My paper towel, my Q-tips or cotton buds, whatever you want to call them. See, that blue is still way too blue for me. And I may go even thinner with all of them. We'll see what that looks like. Alright, I'm going to zoom, and now I have to turn off my autofocus because my camera goes crazy. Yeah, I think that's good. You want to use a pretty super soft brush because it just tends to leave less marks. You're not going to get much brush marks anyway. And let's start with the yellow. Can you see it? I tend to not try to not get in the eyes because the eyes, you can fill up all that detail. And then you just take your paper towel and get all that excess off. You don't want to rub, because if you rub, then you've rubbed off all your paint. I'm just dabbing. Very little paint off. But you can see that yellow has stayed compared to, well, here's a comparison for her legs and her face. I'm gonna let that dry down a little bit. And then we'll go in with the red. And you're gonna look at this, you're gonna be like, oh no. But really, once you see the result of See, this is why I don't paint down to the hairline down to the face, because you get all kinds of paint and whatnot in there. And it looks splotchy, and that's, I know it sounds crazy, but that's what you want. You want that splotchiness, because once the wash is dry, I go back with a really toned down wash of the original skin color. Let that dry down a little bit. See how splotchy it looks? That won't be splotchy once this all dries down, and then you have your wash of your original skin color, and all of this is like undertones. And now after I do my washes, these 3 washes, I will once again do the matte varnish. Really scared of that blue. It's still very blue. Can always go back and do more. If I don't like the initial depth, I guess, of the wash, then I can always go back and do more. But I think this is going to be okay. Yeah, that's giving me that kind of gray undertone that I want. Trust the process. The first time I did this, I was like, oh, well, I just screwed that up. But then I just kept going. Freddy's Customs. If you're not already following him on YouTube, I would suggest you do so. He is amazing. And Darren Carnell also has some amazing videos. He hasn't put anything out in a while. Ben Painting. He is amazing also. There are some great painters out there, but it does not seem like there is enough that paint 1/6 scale figures. So, I'm definitely not a professional, don't claim to be, but I thought I would join in and, you know, maybe I have something to offer somebody. And there's areas, you know, that always under the chin. So I'm pretty happy with this right now. I think I'm going to go a little bit more. Just to kind of gray her down a little more. I've done a few of these now. A total of 3. But I have practiced on some heads, and I can kind of judge what it's going to look like with the flesh tone over it. Can you even see that? Just little specks. Gives that hint of blood being under the skin, or you know, undertones. I don't worry about what the eyes look like. I just don't want them filling up with paint. I don't worry about what the eyes look like or even the eyelids, because she's a woman and she is going to have eyeshadow. Alright, let's do our matte varnish. Ooh. I'd rather use a flat brush. You can get too heavy with this varnish and it loses its matte. So if you don't want a satin look, just do, you know, a thin coat is all it takes. You don't want it pooling anywhere. Okay. We will let that dry down and come back when this is dry and on to the next step. Okay, her face has dried. So what we're going to do is I'm going to mix up my face wash. This is a custom color that I do. I showed you previously what colors that I used. Sometimes I use basic flesh tones and then supplement with my own colors to get own colors, meaning red, yellow, and blue. Sometimes a burnt umber. Just depends on the tone that I'm going for. You can mix up your own flesh tones with red, yellow, blue, some burnt umber, some regular brown, and white. And I've not had good results with that. I guess it's just because I'm so new to painting, but for me it's easier to start with the flesh tones and then add a little bit of, you know, if I want a cooler tone, I'm going to add blue. If I want a more warm tone, then I'm going to add the red and the yellow. Sometimes I just add a drop of burnt umber and that's the exact color that I need. It's every face that I paint, every model that I paint, any part of the skin is always a custom mix. I don't ever use a color straight out of the bottle. If anybody knows of a brand of paint that has amazing flesh tones straight out of the bottle, then by all means leave me a comment below. I would love to be able to use paint straight out of the bottle and not have to mix it, but you just don't get that same result. And every single paint bottle that I have also gets one of these. I have a paint mixer. Don't know if I can, well, I can unstick it and show it to you. One of these little doodads. It works pretty good, but I found that it works even better if you put a mixing ball in your paint. There's the old shake it up and hope that it mix plan, but I've found that doesn't always work out. Let's mix up our Skintone wash, and I think I'm going to airbrush it, and that's why I didn't go crazy getting all close with the hair and close to her face. I like to, usually if I'm painting skin, I will mix it in my airbrush, but when I'm making a wash, there's a little technique that I like to use, that I drag it up the side, and I drag it up the side too when I'm airbrushing regular paint, but just to make sure I've got my paint thin enough to be able to spray. But when I make a wash, there's a specific translucency that I'm looking for. Sometimes I'll check on my hand, that ain't it. Much thinner, and I've got way too much paint now. And I want to add a little bit of alcohol because I like to dry it fast. And this is just 70%, just plain isopropyl alcohol, or as I learned last night, surgical spirits. Had no idea what that was. I was talking to Megat. He said he couldn't find any IPA. All he could find was surgical spirits. And I was like, what is that? That may be where I want to go right there. So I had to Google that. And I found out that surgical spirits is IPA. Okay, so let me zoom you back in. I hope it's not my compressor that was causing that popping. If it was, I'm so sorry that the popping is going to happen. I'm just very lightly. I mean, I don't want to cover up everything I just did, so very, very lightly. I'm just spraying air right now. I'm mostly spraying thinned down, I mean basically watered down paint. Very little paint. You can still see everything underneath that we did previously. We've lightened her back up. She has that gray undertone that I was looking for. Just spraying air. Yeah, that's those speckles that I was looking for. Okay, let me take you off zoom. And then now what we're going to do, I've got a little bit of my skin tone left. So what I want to do is start adding my highlights. The highlights, I'm just going to lighten this a little bit. And I think I'm going to use regular white and bone white. The bone white has that little bit of a gray cast to it. I want to keep that gray in her skin tone. That's just my paint mixer going. And see, that barely changed that. I don't really want to wash. It's pretty thin. What I might do, not real happy with that. Well, and I'm back. Not really sure what happened with my lighting, but had to reset all of that. And I did decide that that paint was too thin. So I'm just going to start, I'm going to go with the wet palette, and that way I can mix it. I do love this Masterson's wet palette because this sheet has been literally washed with soap and water. I don't know, 4 or 5 times. I just pick a new spot. Now I can mix what I want, how I want it, this way. See, here's my original skin tone, and here is my highlight tone. And I may highlight and then think, oh, that's not light enough. And I'm basically dry brushing highlights. You can see where I'm adding. Just on her nose, chin, under her eyes. high points in the neck. You're just trying to bring out the high points. Brow bone. Not much of a brow bone on that side. And you just keep doing it until you're happy with what it looks like. Not adding much paint at all. And as you can see, let me zoom you in a little bit. I'm not that much lighter than my skin tone, than my original skin tone. You don't want super light contrasted highlights or contour. You have to take into consideration where shadows are. You know, you don't want to highlight anything underneath her chin because the light is not going to be hitting under her chin. You don't want to highlight under her nose because the light's not going to be hitting that. And this is why I say watch women's makeup videos, because you can see with highlights and contours, the point of a highlight is to bring forward high points, and with contour you want to make things look sucked in, I guess, for lack of better terms. That's why you'll see women contour underneath the cheekbone, underneath the lip, because it makes the lips look bigger. They'll contour the sides of the nose if they want to make their nose look thinner, under the chin to make their chin look more prominent. You got to think about how sun hits things, direction of the sun, the shape you want the face to be, because you can literally change the shape of a face with highlight and contour. I'm going to call that highlight done, and I'm going to take, I think I'm going to take this beastly brown. I don't want to give a whole lot of life to her face, but I do want to add a little contour. And I mean little. Here's our highlight color. Here's our contour color. And you can always add more. You can always add more layers. Here you can see better. Highlight color, contour color, and then basic skin tone. Here. Really dry brush. So you can just barely see that I'm doing anything. You're just wanting to barely darken up what you've done. I mean, if you want it to look real, anything that is deep or sunk in is what I'm trying to say. I'm just blending. I have nothing on my brush right now. And there we go. She's not going to be marching around with no makeup on, so I do want to make it look like she's got makeup on, but not overly, you know, I don't want her to look like she's working down on the street, but I still want that grayish undertone. So I'm pretty happy with that. That's come out. How about we turn off the autofocus again? There we go. Oh, this camera hates me so bad. The way I've got it set up, I have to do everything backwards. There, now you can see. For just a second. She looks like she's got the beginnings of makeup, and I'm okay with it.